You want a story that moves like real life, right on Min True Value? So let me jump straight in the way a real American would sit down at a diner booth, drop their bag on the seat, look you right in the eyes and say, "You ever notice the loudest person in the room usually has the most to hide?" Well, that's how it started for me. And suddenly, you know you're in for something raw, maybe a little dangerous, maybe a little funny, just true. I used to think you could skate through life by keeping your head down, not making waves just show up, do the work, slip out the back before anybody noticed your name on the schedule. That was my entire plan until the night everything blew up in my face in a way I could never have scripted. I was working a banquet for Arison Ventures, this tech monolith with a glass building that looks like a space station in downtown Chicago, wearing the usual server's vest, black slacks, hair tied back so tight it made my teeth ache. Nobody paid attention to minute really unless their glass was empty or the scallops ran out. Which suited me just fine, you know what I mean? Until I caught a glimpse of a slide on the big screens, a formula that screamed wrong from the second I saw it. I've been setting water glasses on a table in the corner, just another face in the crowd, but those numbers, they just didn't sit right. Something about the growth rate CAGR. I remember from back in school before everything went sideways at home looked upside down, like someone had copied it wrong, or worse, rigged it to look better than it was. I said something softly, maybe too softly, to a sharp-suited analyst named Mira, who immediately shot back. "You're a caterer, right?" With that tone half amused, half dismissive. I didn't argue. Why bother? She turned away, and I went back to my tray, thinking, "Don't get involved, Maya," but the thought gnawed at me all night. Minutes later, the control room doors flew open and Randall, their bulldog head of finance, stormed in. "Who's the server that's been snooping around my data?" He was angry, real angry, and Mira, who could have let me hang, actually spoke up. She just noticed a math error. Didn't matter, Randall's eyes found me, and before I could blink, I was getting hustled down to a windowless security office under bright lights, being grilled like some kind of industrial spy. "You accessed our pitch deck? You want us to believe a waitress spotted what our entire analytics team missed?" He barked. I should have just shut up, but when you know you're right, it burns in your throat. I told him the truth. I was a server because my mom got sick. I dropped out to take care of her. I knew numbers because I love numbers, but life doesn't always let you choose your uniform. There was a long, cold silence. Randall looked like he wanted to chew glass. Then, right as I figured I'd be out of a job by sunrise, the security officer piped up, "Sir, footage confirms she never accessed anything. She just looked." Randall grumbled, but let me go, and I was already halfway to the elevator when a new voice cut in low, calm, absolute authority. Blake Thornwell, the CEO, silver-haired, sharp as winter, stepped out of the shadows. "Heard enough," he said, and I swear the whole temperature in the room dropped. He didn't scold me, didn't threaten, just asked if I'd show him the mistake. So there I was in a room built for people who spend more on shoes than I earned in a month, standing in front of a whiteboard in my polyester vest, rewriting their pitch deck math while Randall looked like he wanted to strangle me. I showed them the formula, walked through the logic. My hands were shaking, but my voice didn't crack, and when I was done, Mira leaned over, whispering, "She's right." That was it. The big moment. Blake told Randall to pull the original model and audit every formula. Randall left, stiff-backed, humiliated. The first domino fell. But this is America, right? Just because you're right doesn't mean you win. They sent me home, paid for the rest of my shift, but my manager handed me an envelope of me shift canceled in pen. I spent the rest of the day wandering my block, feeling like a ghost, not knowing if I was about to be blacklisted or made into a cautionary tale. And here's the twist: sometimes doing the right thing puts a target on your back. That night, Mira found mesh dug through the audit logs. The projections had been cleaned by Randall's assistant, on his orders, just days before the pitch. Not a mistake, a cover-up for the investors. And even as Blake redid the pitch with my corrections and my name on the internal memo, it didn't feel safe. I wasn't a hero, I was a problem. You feel me? That kind of tension lives under your skin. Next day, at the investor event, I was supposed to be invisible again, except this time Blake called my name out from the stage. The error was found by Maya William, a server on our staff. Integrity doesn't come with a tight light, comes with courage. Cameras flashed, jaws dropped, and I almost cried right there but couldn't. I just nodded and tried to vanish again. But trouble doesn't vanish that easy. After the speech, two security officers quietly intercepted me, led me down a back hallway. I thought, this is it, I'm fired. Instead, I met a government investigator, James Holloway, who told me, your find may have saved this company from a much bigger problem. Randall's been under review for over a year. What you did is the thread we needed. You want to know if I've been paid to keep quiet, if anyone had threatened me. I told him the truth. I'd barely spoken to anyone except my mom. Here's where it gets wild. Later that night, I find a plain envelope in my mailbox, no return address, just a flash drive and a note. You don't know what you've started. Some numbers aren't meant to be found. The drive, when I finally opened it, showed off the books, transfers money moving through shell companies, labeled Cobalt Phase 3, routed offshore. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just fighting a bad spreadsheet. I was staring at the roots of something designed to stay hidden, and someone wanted me to either find it or take the fall. I brought it to Mira. We started pulling threads, mapping payment times to executive travel, seeing how the transfers ramped up after staff changes. Blake, meanwhile, looked tired, older than before, torn between protecting his company and protecting the truth. One night, he handed me an internal report warning that Cobalt's backend was compromised, but it had been buried by Randall and Heller, the old GAR VP. There was a name at the bottom, D. Greer, a junior coder, sent to Atlanta after he tried to raise the flag. Every time we got close to the truth, a new threat would arrive: a photo in my mailbox, a shot of my apartment window at night, a message on my phone. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. You know that feeling when you start double-checking shadows on the street? That was my new normal. I wasn't a whistleblower by choice. I was just trying to stay alive and do the right thing. Eventually, with James's help, we tracked down Greer, living out of a motel in Atlanta, gaunt and scared. He gave us the real fail-safe USB that could reveal how Cobalt wasn't just communication software, but a hidden tool for tracking and selling user data to foreign buyers. Surveillance, behavioral profiling, all cloaked in routine tech jargon. Greer's warning was simple: expose this, and they'll come for all of us. We broke into Arison's lab late at night, planted the fail-safe, mirrored everything. But before it finished, alarms went off. I ran, heart pounding, hands shaking, every instinct screaming, get out. James got me to a safe house, drive in hand. There, we uncovered the real power. Not Randall, not Blake, but Catherine Vale, the lead corporate counsel, the shadow author of every policy that made whistleblowing impossible. The next day, with everything riding on one shot, we confronted Vale in a shareholder meeting. She tried to belittle me, called me just a server, but I recorded her every word. When she threatened me, it was a nail in her own coffin. James took the tape to the feds, and within 48 hours, indictments dropped, travel bans enforced. Arison went in a meltdown. But it didn't end with a bow. My phone blew up: media, strangers, trolls. Some called me a hero. Others said I was a fraud, a plant, a troublemaker. I testified before Congress, started working on reforms, helped Mira and Greer launch a digital literacy center for kids in my old neighborhood. But every time we thought the fight was over, a new clone of the old system would pop: upprivate contractors, schools tracking kids, corporations pushing consent forms nobody read. 3 years later, I was no longer invisible. I'd build a community, train a new generation of truth-tellers, but I knew, deep down, the fight was never really over. Justice is a journey, not a destination. And sometimes the only thing standing between silence and truth is one person willing to say, that's the wrong formula. So, you asked what I learned? I learned you don't have to be in charge to change things. You don't need a fancy title. All you need is the guts to speak up when it matters, and the stubbornness to keep speaking when they try to shut you down. Truth doesn't belong to the powerful, it belongs to the loud, the stubborn, the ordinary. So what about you? Where do you draw the line? Would you have spoken up, or would you have stayed silent? Leave a comment below. Let's talk about what justice really means, and if it's ever as clean as we hope. Because this stormy story, it's not just mine. It could be anybody's, even yours.